Okay, we're in for kind of a special treat, you guys, because our local training person, Elaine, has consented to do some education training. How's that, Elaine?
Well, whatever.
She's going to share her experience. She's going to share her experience on what it takes to be a good counselor and to learn some things.
Okay,
Is that enough?
close enough.
Come on up, Elaine, and tell them.
It's the only green thing in the house. So we all periodically, most of us, counsel. I personally find that one of the funnest things about school. It's way more fun than keeping track of income and expenses and filling out reimbursement forms and all of that kind of stuff. But sometimes I think we get a little complacent maybe in how we handle our client relationships. So the client has just come in, Marilyn maybe has introduced them, maybe not. Usually there's one of these. It's called a 641. A lot of us sort of just seem to ignore it. Take a look at it. The person should at least have his name, phone numbers, make sure that that email address is legible. Sometimes that's kind of a challenge. And then there's a whole bunch of small print that maybe they're trying to read, and I always assure them that basically that says in a lot of words that what we're going to talk about is confidential, that we're not going to steal their idea, share it with our next door neighbor or my son-in-law who needs a new thing to do. And that sometimes is reassuring to them because sometimes they're hesitant. Sometimes they'll tell Marilyn one thing, and then when they get to you, it's something entirely different. And they are just so concerned that they will lose out on their knowledge or their idea or something like that. So going on from there, if they have completed the front part, great. Sometimes this is the first time. I usually take it from there and go through some of the statistical stuff. It's important that we get to know who referred them so that we know where they got the idea to come. Generally, the answer to are you in business will be no. If it's yes, then you go on ahead, and sometimes it turns out they really aren't. But if they are in business and they can't tell you how much they've been making, I really question if they're in business. Because in my first life, when I was with a government agency, people would always say, when I'd say, how much have you earned so far this year? Well, I don't really know. And I'd say, really? Because any decent business person is going to have at least an idea of their gross. So then you go on and ask them, what is it that they really wanted to talk to us about? And sometimes that's interesting. Sometimes they just have an idea. Sometimes it's on the back of an envelope. Sometimes they've developed a product. Sometimes they want to open a certain kind of a business. But whatever, you want to find out how they want, what their plan is going to be. And at this point, we are encouraged to use the SLATE program. I think you all got one of these when you became a member. It should be in your package. I don't have enough to pass out. If any of you are desperate, stop afterwards. Where at the beginning you listen to them. You stop. You suspend judgment. You don't just assume it's a cockamamie idea. It may be, it may not be. You listen to what they have to say. Then it's okay to assess and analyze. And that sometimes has to be done tactfully. One of the more interesting ones I recently talked to, nice young man, came in, he wanted to open a motorcycle repair shop. So far, so good. He wanted to open it in his garage, in his neighborhood, in a gated community. When I mentioned the word zoning, he just looked blank. Like, what? He said, well, I'm sure my neighbors won't mind. Well, so then you have to go into the deal that some businesses require certain zoning, certain permits, certain, all of this kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean you're throwing rain on his parade. You're just trying to help him avoid getting so far into it, and then all of a sudden he can't do it. Another person a young lady wanted to do wine tastings. She wanted to take wine to people's houses, have a tasting, and then sell that wine. When I asked if she considered needing a liquor license, well, no, couldn't she just keep it in the garage? Well, that's not the best place to keep wine anyway, but anyway, so it's stuff like this that can come up. It may not be a bad idea. Sometimes it needs to have some development. If sometimes the client has already started a business plan, sometimes they haven't. At this point, it's always good to almost become great Aunt Harriet, great Uncle Joe, and insist that a business plan is needed. Many people won't want to do it. They think that what they've written on the back of the envelope, the cocktail napkin, is just fine. Then it's kind of helpful. We have some publications in the counseling office. One of them is How to Really Start a Business. Another one is Simple Steps. It kind of leads people through the whole process. It asks questions as they go along that insists that they focus on certain ideas, like what their market would be, how they would access that market, how they would acquire customers, what they would charge, how would they get paid. Sometimes this hasn't even occurred to people. Sometimes people who want to do sort of a counseling, sort of a being a helpful kind of thing, it doesn't occur to them that they need to get paid in order to be in business. They don't think in being paid. I don't know where they think they're going to live on, but sometimes that's hard because very often some of the people who need counseling the most have no money. So they either have to be referred through some social agency or some sort of thing, but how you're going to get paid, how you're going to monetize your plan is sometimes something they need to think about. Sometimes they will ask us for specific information, like where do I go to get this kind of a permit? How do I deal with a wine distributor? How do I do this? If you know the answer, and you're sure you know the answer, then it's fine. Go ahead and answer the question. If you don't know, or if you're not sure, it's okay to say so. Better to not know and say, I will find out for you, or direct them to where they can find out, than to do something off the top of your head and just wing it. This same client may sometimes ask for recommendations. They may say, do you know a good accountant? Do you know an attorney I should contact? How about a contractor? How about a who knows what? Keep in mind that it is not SCORE's place to recommend professional assistance. If we do, we cannot stop at one. There has to be at least 3 choices. And this is very clear in all of SCORE's information to us. Because if we recommend one particular firm or person and things go sideways, there could be some serious legal results. Because someone could say, I got involved with this person because of SCORE. So be very cautious that you don't say, oh, you contact so-and-so, contact my brother-in-law. My cousin is a really good contractor and I know he'll do a great job for you. Just bite your tongue and say, there are many good ones out there. If you want a list of 3, I will try and assemble them for you. There's one exception. We can recommend if people need legal help, the Creighton Law School Law Center, where people can go. They need to contact them. They need to complete some information to establish their eligibility. And then it isn't, I'll call in the morning and I'll be talking to somebody in the afternoon. You do have to wait your turn. But the Abramson Law Center at Creighton is an excellent source for basic legal advice. Also, be a little aware of what's in this brown envelope. The client should have received it in advance. If there's enough time, Marilyn will have mailed it to them. If there hasn't been enough time, she'll give it to them as they come in. If we don't know what's in it, we're idiots. There's this that gives lots of information on different stuff in Nebraska that they may need to contact Department of Revenue, that kind of stuff, all over the place. There's state and local information in here too. Here's the flyer that describes our workshops, the entrepreneur workshop. We can mention all of those to them as we go along. If a person's a good candidate to attend the entrepreneur workshop, the information is here. There's a startup list for small businesses, a lot of things that some companies will need to do, or some people. They won't all need everything, but it's a good thing. There's information about the empowerment breakfast. There's the Veterans in Business Forum. There's the federal contracting workshop. The entrepreneur workshop again, the one-on-one business plan disc, and again, preparing your own business plan. We do have a disc. Here's a resource guide for small businesses. When you give this to people, suggest that they look it over. It may be helpful for them to use some or all of this information. So now, you have told them that they need, those are at the office if you need them. Sometimes through all of this, you know that money is going to be an issue. This is where we can get into some of what Leon was talking about. But they absolutely will need a business plan no matter where they go to apply for a loan. No bank, no enterprise fund, no corner of the block person is going to talk to them without a business plan. So we've gone through all of this with the client. We're going to finalize with, do they have some more questions? Is there more they can do? You remind them that we have a variety of experts, that I am not their caseworker necessarily, that I'll be happy to talk with them again. But if they need to talk with someone whose specialty is a business plan, or who specializes in other areas, that they are free to talk to somebody else. In fact, one of our entrepreneurs of the year, I talked to him initially. I know that he has talked to at least 2 other SCORE counselors in the process. He attended Boots to Business, he attended the workshop. And I think he had an SBA guaranteed loan. So it's a whole circle of things. It isn't just you and me forever. At the end, ask them if they have more questions right then. If they want to make a new appointment, do that. Encourage maybe the use of the business plan disc and go on. So now he has left and you're done. You're not done. There's the back of the 641. Do not overlook it. Do not ignore it. On it, it asks what we did. Asks who we referred them to. Asks what kind of a session it was. Asks for your name. Asks how much time you spent. Then, at the very bottom, this little space that says counselor's notes. Leave some breadcrumbs for the next counselor. If I just put on their recommended workshop and the guy calls and gets a new appointment, whoever he talks to, is the counselor is going to be starting from scratch. If I just write business startup, the next poor soul isn't going to have a clue. If I write down wants to start a wine shop, doesn't understand distributorship, this kind of stuff, they will know. If I put down, like my entrepreneur of the year, what he wants to do, what his next challenge is going to be, then the next guy doesn't have to start from the beginning. So take those couple minutes and complete it, and then put it in the basket. Jenny will input all of this information into CORE, so take it from there. I thoroughly enjoy counseling. I really enjoy it. Sometimes I know something about the business they're going to be into. If it's exporting, I do know a little bit about it. I do know that you don't just put this stuff in the curb and the mail delivers it to Denmark. But so sometimes it's good to have somebody who's had some experience. Sometimes we all learn together. So remember to do the 641s, use the resources that we have.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, any questions?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Like you, I feel it's my obligation to tell the client any possible pitfalls of their idea. Do you feel it's our job to err on the side of encouraging rather than discouraging, even though we feel some of those pitfalls might be major?
I think that it's our duty kind of to help them avoid a serious pitfall. If they're suggesting something that I feel is really questionable or borderline in some ways, and sometimes things are, not necessarily. If it seems as if the person hasn't really thought it out, I think it's important to ask, the analyze and ask part of SLATE, so that they see what some of the stuff that's going to come up is going to be. I don't ever want to say to them flat out, this will never fly. Even if I kind of believe that. I think that's up to that person to come to that conclusion on his or her own, because otherwise they won't.
National's done some studies on this, and where an entrepreneur will come up with basically a bad idea. The idea that they have an entrepreneurial spirit, and maybe the second or the third time they come up with their second or third idea, then they will actually hit something that really works for them. So if you discourage their existing idea, which might be appropriate, if you don't want them to go lose a whole lot of money, but encourage them to come up with other ideas, modify that sort of thing. That's what National encourages. I'd say one other thing too. It's very important that each of us have our own set of expertise, and just because we do all we can for the client ourselves, we should be very cognizant of what that client does need and refer them to other mentors that have skill sets more specific to what their other needs are. So it's the whole idea of trying to solve 100% of the client's problems, needs to the best score can, not just the individual entrepreneur. So
I'm going to have to.
Which is what you said.
I'm going to have to cut it off here. We have a really great speaker. Chuck, what do you got? Real quick questions?
Real quick, yes.
What?
First of all, it was a fantastic presentation.
Yes,
Elaine.
very good.
And I'd like to have the name of that lady that comes out with that.
From her garage.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. That was great.